Hello. Oh, what an unprofessional start to this one. Yeah. Hey, guys, it's Andy here from the Silver Lining. I hope you are well. Oh, mate. You've completely put me off flow. So funny.
That'll be raw and real.
Oh, so good. Look, gang, I hope you've had a great morning. I've just had a fabulous session with Jess Densley this morning at 8 a.m. If you didn't see it, go back and have a watch of it. If you're a leader or a director in real estate or in any business, get a grip of that video because it is absolutely brilliant. And this lunchtime, now you're ready for a break in your sarnie and or whatever it is that you're having, I have got a guy who is a bit of a Rolls Royce, in my opinion. He is Harry Lee, director, owner of iSell, based in Springvale, independent agency based in Springvale. He is a master auctioneer, won the Australasian Auctioneering Championships in 2015.
15. Yep.
2015. But the best thing about this guy is that he's pretty much unflappable. I've never known somebody to be so zen. And mate, I tell you what, the thing that I remember most about you so far in our journey as mates and whatnot has been your story from one of the very first conversations that we had when you were telling me about your trip to Brazil, when you said you decided to set off and go to Brazil and try these narcotics that were, whatever they were. And that really sort of gave me a massive insight really quickly as to how you operate, because your wiring is very different. And I'm saying that in an entirely positive way. Mate, how are you, man? How's things? We have frozen. Hold on, guys. Bear with us. Bear with us. Here we go. Let me just get this guy back up. Hold on. There he is. He's back.
There we go. There we go. Things are a bit different out here in Springvale, so just work around it.
Mate, the carrier pigeon's not quite made it there yet. Mate, how are you, man? How's things?
Yeah, good. Look, I mean, of course, with all the changes that have taken place, we've all had our own challenges, whether it be business or personal. But I think it's our own individual mindset and how we want to go through it and how we view things. We have our own perspectives and, just pushing forward.
Mate, whenever I'm around you, I feel calm. Like, you have this aura about you that is just so non-egotistical, which I think is fab. But you've really got you feel. I just can't help but feel centered around you. It's quite an odd thing. Not many people can do that to human beings, right? I know that you talk. I know that you're very much a student of life and a student of consciousness and spirituality and all that sort of stuff. Mate, tell us a bit more about that before we start talking about anything businessy or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, why did you get into all that sort of stuff? Was it an upbringing thing? Was it a particular moment? What was it?
Look, first of all, Andy, well, thanks for having us on. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but look, I think this stuff, the question you just asked, is actually more important than whatever, maybe any business-related things that we can talk about later. Because for me, it's all about our internal world, because everything that we change internally will express externally in how we view things and how we decide on things. So the calm nature that you speak of, I think it's more, yes, definitely got to do with upbringing. Look, obviously, with the way that I was raised, mum and dad, they play a part to it. But I think over time, as an individual, I tried to kind of go through different parts of discovery, finding myself, you could say, whether it be from a career perspective, whether it be from a personal relationship, the competitive nature, just everything. And it's almost like growing up, we get exposed to everything. And then it's actually our duty to digest all of that, then to formulate, okay, who's me or who is Harry Lee, and who am I actually you could say my character, what's within me and what's comfortable, I guess, within myself, for me to then create a comfortable world out there. So then it was I can't pinpoint anything other than it was a turning point a couple of years back where despite all the the auctioneering achievement side and running the business side and things going well, I actually probably felt as down as ever at one point in time. I remember it was a couple of years ago, it was on grand final weekend, for the AFL grand final, I should say. And I technically broke down, like, as in, even though in most people's eyes, like, I was in a great position in life, especially from a career perspective, emotionally and internally, something was wrong inside of me. I felt like something was eating myself up. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't pinpoint it, but I knew something was wrong. And I think we've got to trust ourselves and listen to our body. It's like with anything, like when you're starving, your body will tell you, okay, you're starving. If your instinct's telling you this is not the right thing to do, that it's something in your body is telling you that. And then at that point in time in my life, it was like, Harry, this is not completely you. You haven't kind of reached you yourself. You haven't found yourself completely yet. And it was from there where I discovered the path of finding yourself internally. And then from then onwards, things just started to change.
It's really interesting you say that. I mean, throughout this second series of The Silver Lining, which is all about the greatest comeback, the strongest theme across every single interview so far has been this self-awareness piece. It's this understanding of our own emotions and our own energies and our own chemicals that are going on. That across the board, pretty much everybody has been saying is pretty much the crux of anything that anyone should be doing moving forward. It's been said in a couple of channels that COVID was a chance to try new things, test new things out, see if you want to try a different career path or personal development or anything like that. Look, the reality is, though, man, that for many of us, life just got way more busy. When you think, parents, they've not just got the work hat, they've got the teacher hat, they've got the housekeeper hat, they've got the bloody, everything under the sun hat, as well as mortgage pressures and so on and so forth. And even that like sort of for the young professionals, like the ones that are really sort of like bang 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 bang, all of a sudden stopped, and the silence was killing them. Right, the silence was doing their head in. So, for a lot of people, now that the world is starting to turn again, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, it's really interesting to see that people are just now starting to think, right, well, maybe I need to have a look at myself internally and try and work out what I'm doing before I crack on. So, mate, when you had that breakdown, and you sort of really looked about, this whole self-discovery in a bit more of a serious way. What were the first couple of steps that you took? I mean, was it a case, were you getting feedback from those around you, or was it purely based on the reflection that you were seeing in the mirror? And then what sort of steps did you initially take?
It was definitely a reflection in the mirror. I did not really have anyone within my close circles that was saying, "Oh, Harry, you're not being you," or something's different or something's off. Well, it wasn't pointed out to me anyway. Ultimately, in terms of the self-discovery aspect, like I said, it was something inside of me that was telling me. So I started to listen to that voice, or started to listen to that intuition, and what I did was I started to explore. I'm a big believer of not just being limited to what's being taught to you. I think it's really important that you should go out there and explore everything possible, no matter what field or industry or what type of matter it is. Like, I went to go look at, okay, so I'm feeling this now. So what have other people felt or what have they done, and so forth. So through that research and looking and hearing different news and hearing, different perspectives on it, ultimately, I made a big call at the time. I went to South America, and I went for the most, natural way to find myself that is out there, one of the most traditional ways. And it was a big trip. It's quite controversial to some people because they don't believe in, you could say, natural medicine and so forth. But yeah, going to South America, and I enjoyed the trip, of course. But I had the privilege to go on an ayahuasca journey. A lot of people that I know around the globe have talked about this. It is not heavily promoted at all within our circles and within our media and within our type of reach. But I discovered it, and I go, you know what? This is the path that I'm meant to go on, and I want to go try it out. To me, I kind of, obviously left my business for 14 days, whatever it was at the time. Go, I need to get this done, because to me, that was more important than whatever was taking place at the business premises. So yeah, going through that journey itself, very spiritual indeed. It was kind of a different experience altogether. You disconnect from the world, like, no internet, you're eating clean foods, you're basically there in isolation, technically speaking, but there are people around you that are sharing the same journey with you as well. And the things that you experience and see, you're in nature. You're not here in this concrete jungle. You're out there in a, I guess, a very natural environment where it's all green and obviously blue as well in terms of skies and water. And yeah, it just changed everything within a short space of time. And just looking within myself, which the plant healing did do, ayahuasca itself, yeah, just everything turned on its head from then on.
So old Harry versus new Harry, shall we say, without being too black and white about it.
Black and white, a bit of a thing at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. What they're not colours. They're not just colours. They're actually racist terms, are they?
Whilst we'll just touch on that. Look, I'm happy with people that are standing up. Obviously, racism is something that we should never tolerate. I know a lot of this stems from the past and the history, of course, how people have been treated. I just think that we need to understand that as people, we need to stick together. We should always be sticking together. And the problem comes from authority. That's how I look at it, is that person and the conduct that was done, they felt that they were in a position to do that. They felt the power to be able to make someone, I guess, or in this case, kill someone, and felt that they are able to. And I think that's where the issue stems from. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, look. While we're off on that tangent, I think coupled with that, I reckon in terms of sticking together, because there's obviously the Black Lives Matter movement and whatnot, and there's a lot of bite back from other people of other ethnicity saying, it really should be all lives matter. I listened to a really interesting viewpoint from someone over in America, and he said, look, I totally understand why people are saying all lives matter, but it's kind of like having 10 houses with one being on fire, but you hose all 10 just in case. I think what there needs to be is an acknowledgement of the oppressions that have gone on over the last 400 odd years, in the US. And then, my personal opinion on it was, why is everyone jumping on the American bandwagon when there's some stuff going on our own front doorstep that we break care of, right? And let's maybe clean our own house up before we go having a crack at anyone else's. But I think there needs to be, and I personally believe, I'm sure not to the extent that some would like, but I personally believe that, movements are being made towards acknowledging the vilification of the Aboriginal people and whatnot back in the day. There's greater steps being taken by authorities. But I think across the board, from a society level, from a community level, I think just an openness to understanding, I think, is probably more necessary. Other than the whole, it shouldn't be this, it should be that. Why can't we just come together? We can come together as long as we're all on the same page.
Correct.
I think that's what happen.
In the end, it takes unity for there to be something to take place. And like one thing that I learned, and this is especially after my journey, I was quite big on language and how it's used. When we talk about community, it's actually joining of two words, common unity, actually. So common unity between everyone in the masses. But what actually happens is that this gets divided. So there is no unity. So community does not exist. And so it's about actually having this formed for a greater purpose to happen or take place. Yeah.
100%, man. 100%. I've no idea what we're talking about now.
You said past Harry and present Harry, as in I think that's what
past Harry. Yeah. That was it. So when you came back, so I refer to them. I've had sort of 2 or 3 what I refer to as sort of Matrix moments. You know, when Neo gets shot in the Matrix and all of a sudden he sees the world green and with all the numbers and all that sort of stuff, and sees the world for what it actually is. I've had 2 or 3 of them. So when you came back from Brazil and from your experiences and what have you, was there anything that really stuck out, that was really jarring, that you thought, how on earth have I been like this, or how on earth have I put up with it like this, or was there anything particularly jarring when you got back?
Yeah, look, the number one biggest thing actually for me was the fact that we live in a world that we're taught from young, yes, competing all the time, and you just drive to chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. Without having the understanding of what actual happiness is. Like, you know, we get so caught up in chasing certain goals that we think will make us happy, but a lot of these goals actually have zero substance behind it to actually make you happy. So for me, the biggest thing was, okay, so I was achieving technically goals all the time. So whether it be financial goals, business goals, materialistic goals, you can say, and I was going, yeah, but then, so what else is there? So where's the depth? Okay, and then so I've got there now. What's new, right? And then so, albeit we should have the mentality to always do better. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about, okay, if we want fulfillment, it has to come from within ourselves. Don't chase something expecting to give it fulfillment. The fulfillment comes from inside. So for me, that was the biggest change. It was just like, instead of always just focusing on the outside, it then became, you know, if I want total happiness and fulfillment, it has to come within me first.
You're absolutely spot on. I think it's almost it's that fine line between ambition and then whether it's subconscious or not, like a greed, like a inbred greed, and an insurmountable sort of need to consume. Like we've become a consumerist society where we are just like yummy, just give me more.
Correct.
Without that ability to be able to just pause and feel a sense of contentment and satisfaction with what it is that we have around us and achieved, and an appreciation for that. I mean, I'm exactly the same. Like, I've never been able to feel that sense of you know, I've done a good job, because I was the same. I'm the same as you. I'm all right, but what about that? With this whole topic of appreciation, a bit of a loaded gun question, because I've got my opinion on it, and I would love to get your opinion on it, mate. Being as knowing what I know about how you're wired, how do you know? How do you feel? You know, when it comes to achievement, how do you know when you feel that you've achieved enough? Is there, do you know, it's the appreciation or achievement, whatever you want to call it. How do you know in your own sort of mind what's enough?
Well, for me, okay, number one, the first step to actually get there is to not have outside influences and distractions to always take you in another direction. I think that, you know, we are all on our own path, and we go on this journey, and we need to have defined values within ourselves, and often we swerve away from those values. We get misdirected by outside influences. It could be, whether it be family challenges, it could be business challenges, it could be relationship challenges, it could be anything. But then we steer away and veer away from it. And I think if you talk about appreciation and fulfillment, it's like, once you've discovered your true core self, anything that you do would make you happy and fulfilled. And everything that is looked on the surface is merely nothing, because it's just our perception of it. For example, today, I can, for example, really, and I'm saying this honestly, I can not work in real estate anymore, and I'll still be okay in terms of, I'll be happy and content, because I know I can contribute elsewhere, and I'll be doing other things. providing value to the community out there. And I just think that we just need to have, and I guess this is one of the things that I learned on my spiritual journey when I did go to South America. So one of the key things that I learned was you always have two perspectives, all right? The two perspectives are to have no expectations and to let go. Because what actually happens is that as long as you have expectations, you're always going to feel dissatisfied. Because if you do something based on an expectation, you want something in return. So do not do things based on an expectation of return. It's like even if you say someone that you truly care about, you love, it could be your partner, right? You tell them, I love you. Don't expect them to say, I love you back, because that means you're not sincerely saying, I love you to them, because you had that expectation for them to say it back. Then the let go part is actually what creates freedom within yourself. We get so tied up by things these days, and once again, distractions, influences, that mentally we don't ever let go. We let it bother us. We let that boil within us. We let it actually simmer within us, and it causes a sense of unfulfillment, or I guess a sense of there's more out there. However, if we let these things go, if we just let them go and also do things without expectation, everything that you do becomes okay and happy. You are fulfilled. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I love that whole definition of giving without expectation. It's something that I reckon you can live by that, and it's whether you call it karma, whether you call it, fate, or whatever you want to call it, right? At the end of the day, the more good you put in, essentially, the more good's going to come out of it. You can put your faith in that being the case, right? So, in terms of achievement, right? My opinion on achievement, I'll see how you feel about this. My opinion on achievement is, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot, obviously dealing with various family issues and whatnot, and I have this opinion that you can never truly assess whether you've achieved your full potential until your story is complete. So essentially, until you're on your deathbed and you're about to die, because until that point, there's always time to score again. Like it's a bit like if we were to put it into a bit of a sporting analogy, your favorite team, Man United, in the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. Yeah. Like if you were to assess it based on the first 86 minutes when they were 1-0 down, or 88 minutes or whatever it was, you would class it as failure. But there's always that bit of time left for you to turn it around and to create a success and achievement out of your life, right? And I know that it might sound quite morbid, but I genuinely believe that when I sort of came to this sort of discovery, the amount of relief that came over me was just insane, because that pressure to achieve, like what we've said before, is just so constant. Like it's so like pushed into us.
A lot of that, once again, comes from the expectation. And so part of expectation, we expected to reach it. So we use time as a construct. Because people use time as a construct, and as in a lot of cases, they use it as a deadline. If it doesn't get reached, they feel that they didn't achieve. Instead of viewing it that way, drop that expectation, especially of time, using time as a construct, and just keep on moving forward. And then once again, as long as you keep on progressing and moving forward, whether it's mentally, spiritually, physically, doesn't matter how you look at it, and you're progressing, you're going down the right path. And
100%. And the thing is that, and that ties in with the other thing that I was thinking about. Ultimately, like, none of us know the path ahead. Like in a business sense, we talk about business plans going completely out the window with everything that's gone on, right? Just destroy everyone's forecasting. But in a life sense, and it's a shame that it's taken a pandemic for the world to really understand this to a degree. The knowledge of not knowing where the path is, not knowing where your path is going to end up, or where it's going to go, or what have you. Again, it's quite a relief, because it's kind of like, when you go for a run and you're down a long road and you see the end of where you want to be. It looks like miles away. It looks so far away. Yeah, if you just keep your head down and keep running forward, it actually comes up quicker than what you think it does. And so not having that knowledge of just being able to let go of worrying about where your path is going and just putting one foot in front of the other, you know, the world would be a better place, because there is that complete lack of toxic pressure. And it is a bit of a toxic pressure, to be honest, right? Now, mate, I want to go a little bit geek. I'm going to go a little bit selfish this one. Just talk a little bit about auctioneering, because gang, for those of you that don't know, like I've mentioned at the top of the show, Harry is a master auctioneer, and what that means is he's basically one of the top dogs to grab a hold of a gavel and give it his all. For those of you that live overseas, for the UK guys and the ones in North America, auctioneering down in Australia and New Zealand is very much it's a thing that is revered to a degree, and we are seen as pretty much the auction capital of the world. So when, you know, in a normal circumstance, we in Melbourne would be slightly disappointed if we saw any less than about 1,400 auctions per weekend. Now, Harry, why on earth did you start doing it?
Well, starting point was actually because the company that I worked for didn't have an auctioneer. And albeit the company did have multiple offices, and a couple of them were auctioneers by name, whenever a couple of the listings that I had that went to auction, and of course I engaged with them, being from the same company, I just felt that, you know, the standard was pretty average. Okay, and I thought, well, look, if that's their standard, look, I can do some basic training and kind of at least get started on, gain some knowledge on it. And then once I started doing some basic training and just doing, say, the bare essentials, once I got onto the tools and did my first 10 auctions, for example, will be around there, I go, you know what, this is helping with profile a little bit. This is kind of getting me, you know, a bit more of my name out there. And you know what, if I can get my name out there just by being a very basic auctioneer, what would happen if I actually become really good at this? You know, what would change? And then so, you know, I did a video the other day. It's, you know, you may have saw I released it out about my journey. How, you know what, when I went to go discover more, I didn't go just to the nearby suburbs or to find one of my competitors. Journey was, okay, let's go. Who's the best out there? Let's go see what standard is truly available, and for me, what should be a realistic or actual be my target. So yeah, and so that's how it all started.
How did you feel? What were your internal mechanics like when you did that first one? Was it a case of was it almost like an ignorance is bliss with regards to the pressure of it all because of how you are, or were you panicking, or what?
I wasn't panicking because it was my own campaign, so I knew I had the buyers. So at least I knew who the buyers were. I run the opens. I did all the activities as a normal listing agent would, which is still my primary role, listing and selling, right? So because I knew that and I was confident of the campaign itself, I'll go, yeah, I can actually do the auction without the fear of passing in, essentially, or even if it does pass in, at least I've got the buyers there to negotiate with. So I at least let that part go. Of course, the fear of public speaking, I think is within all of us at the start. And it was more about trying to just release those nerves. And I think once you start getting into the momentum of the auction 2-3 minutes in, you're just in the moment and you're just present and you're just kind of just absorbing that environment at that time and go, all right, let's just push through. So look, nervous, yes. I mean, was I, potentially having nervous shakes or wheeze before the auction? Yes, I certainly did. But after that, it was good. It was good. And once you get a taste of it and you actually truly embrace it, I think that's when you go, you know what? There's more out there.
The thing that really just amazed me about it, and this is where the real auctioneers out there, and it's again my opinion, it's got nothing to do with ego. It's almost the escapism of having the freedom to just be 100% present in the moment. And there's very few. There are very, very few safe environments where you can really do that, right?
Yeah.
Where you can genuinely be a 100. I mean, even if you're playing sport or you're doing a hobby or whatever, there's always that bit of external sort of what's going on in the world or back of your head sort of stuff with family or home or relationship or whatever the case may be, right? Whereas with an auction, it is just the one place where you cross the white line and
Yes.
not one thing matters in the rest of the world. And
the only thing that matters is making sure you do a damn good job for the people that you're representing. I mean, that's the only thing you have in the back of your mind, right? And then just be present.
It's just the most liberating feeling to only have to think about one thing. It's just, and that's one thing that I wanted to bring up today, because I reckon for those people that, I mean, I'm not talking about everybody becoming an auctioneer, because it does take a particular sort of wiring to want to do it. But I think the need to try and find something that really does give you that release, to that liberating sense of, space, personal, internal space that allows you to just breathe again, I think is so incredibly vital. I mean, some people do meditation. I know Jess this morning, he talks about how he does his yoga or stretching. If he's talking to manly men, he doesn't talk about yoga, he talks about stretching. For me, it is the auctioneering thing. I can't sit still. So for me, auctioneering is where I get my kicks. How important to you, even though you were dealing with stuff and you were in old Harry mode, did you have an understanding, or did you know, or did you have anything else that you used to do that really sort of took you away and gave you that sort of space within yourself?
Well, I'm a bit of a geek and a nerd, so when I wanted to zone out and I was in my own space and I didn't care about anything else in the world, and I kind of just did my own thing and everything else didn't matter, I was playing video games. And still to this day, I play a little bit of video games. It kind of just makes me switch off totally in that regard. That was at that time, though, because I felt, even when doing auctions, I didn't feel that way at that time. These days I do. At that time, I always added that pressure or intensity on myself to make sure that, do a really, really good job here. And because of that, I had that on me to not be able to just say, let go, or to feel that, yep, this is an environment where I could just be me. Nowadays is a bit different, because I know that I'm at a certain comfort level within myself, and also to mentally to go, yep, I can do that now. Back then, look, for me to kind of escape from it all and to feel liberated is to actually be in my own isolated environment. Like I said, video games was one thing. Just going away, just even leaving spaces that I used to go to often, whether it be home, work, whatever it may be, and just taking myself away from that and just being in an environment. I know a lot of people like, for example, fishing, and that was something I did a few times. A lot of people like, for example, hiking out in the mountains, and it's just kind of away from everything. You don't hear anything. You're not looking at your phone. You're just kind of in your own moment. I did a mixture of things just to keep it exciting, you could say, so I don't get bored. But the most common thing was actually video games.
I think everybody needs to try and find something, though, and it doesn't matter what it is. No one needs to explain it. You don't even have to tell many people what it is, right? Some people have some way more weird things than bloody computer games, right? And look, given the lack of sport and the amount of exposure that esports has been getting recently, like mainstream exposure, it's actually not geeky anymore, is it? So a lot of money in it now. So I think it's so vital that we find that, right? It's so vital. Now, when it comes to what you mentioned at the top of the show with regards to being prepared for something that you knew was going to come, okay. Let's just talk on that second part of that statement, that you knew was going to come. With respect to, when you say that, do you think it's sort of like is it a good business sense to prepare for doomsday, so to speak? Or did you have an external awareness that, because obviously there's been videos that have come out since it's all kicked off about, Bush Jr., but he's saying that we've got to get ready for a pandemic and so on and so forth, right? Were you sort of thinking that something this catastrophic was on its way, or were you thinking more of a business sense, doomsday? Explain that to us a little bit more.
Sure. So you're talking about before we were on air, right? And we touched on it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Look, I'm a positive thinker. Okay, but also a realist as well. So for me, I'm big on discovery. So when, like I said earlier, in my own personal spiritual journey to find myself, I went on a discovery journey. That's what I did. So I've always been that way inclined, and my older brother, of course, has been more so in that regard. And he's always been with me from the early on get going. Anyway, involved with the business together, like we were here together, and now not really anymore. But ultimately, back, just so you know where it all started, was most of the people who have been around long enough or were involved at that time would know that we went through a period called GFC, the global financial crisis. Now in the States, I think they timed it at 07, 08. And for us, in terms of real estate, we probably didn't feel it until about 2012, 2013, when the market started coming down. Now, look, one thing I will say is that no one can predict the future. So this is one of the things I learned from one of my mentors, Robert Kiyosaki, as well, right? Is that you cannot predict the future, but you can plan for it. Okay, so I think in terms of at that time and the information that we kind of discovered, how the financial system was operating, how it was working, and in the end, how everything got bailed out at that time, it was, in my opinion, it was a band-aid over a very serious situation. They put a temporary relief, much like even recent times, they've been injecting money, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, right, to try to keep things going. And that's what they did back then. And what it did, it revived the economy, but it never changed the actual foundations of how things were working economically in the world. So for, I guess, in our perspective, I looked at it, okay, that time the bubble was supposed to burst somehow and should affect a lot of people financially, but it didn't happen to the degree that probably it should have. So then ongoingly, everything that was from a business perspective and a personal perspective was about setting the right foundations. The right foundations, the right structures, the right things in place so that no matter what happens, whether it be good or bad, that we're prepared for it and we're ready for it. And to me, whether you can call that good business sense or good business plan, I can't say that. All I know is that no matter what takes place, we're okay. We can, because we've built, like with anything, it's like when you build a home itself, you need to make sure your foundations are strong. You need to make sure that things are done properly from ground up. If you try to build too quickly, too fast, or try to do too much at one given time, any little blip in the market, any little blip that's not within your control can actually affect how you move, how you go moving forward. I'm not saying that what has happened recently hasn't affected business or affected things, but what I'm saying is that the extent of the effect certainly has been very minimized because of all this ongoing planning leading up to recent events as well.
Yeah, this is where short-term versus long-term comes into play. So for me, this has been one of my bigger learning curves from everything that's gone on. Because I'm a lover of chaos, and I'm sort of moment to moment kind of guy in many respects. But one thing that this is really sort of hammered home for me is the fact that can only get you so far, and you need to ride your luck a little bit at various times. Whereas there's a difference between riding your luck and calculated risk, and very distinct differences. So one big thing that I've learned that I would implore everybody to learn and to understand or to get to know is what you just said then. You really need to make sure that at all times you've got best case and worst case scenario. I'm glad that you said best case as well, because we're not just talking about awfulizing, right? We're not just talking about no one goes into business so they can feel miserable because of what might happen. It's just silly. But you've got to think about both ends of the scale. What could happen if it just goes ballistic and goes amazingly well? Have we got plans in place for that unbelievable growth boom or whatever? And then vice versa, if it goes to crap, have we got all those plans in place to make sure that that gets sorted as well? We can't just believe that we're just going to live in a middle of the road kind of world. It's not like modern day politics where everyone just sits in the middle. There are going to be extremes that come from it. The stock market, if you look at those graphs, they do that for a reason. And I think a lot of people go into business, generally speaking, with a bit of a naivety around how good it could get and how bad it could get, right? What would you, in terms? So, say for example, if I'm a real estate director who started the business during a good patch or an okay patch, and they were a really good salesman in terms of managing a business and whatnot, didn't really know that much about it, and now it's hit the fan. In your educated opinion, mate, what would you say would be the first couple of steps that they would need to take in order to sort of get some of this plan in place?
Sure. Look, I think one of the major things that generally salespeople, because of what I find in real estate, that people who open up businesses are salespeople, because they see the dollars, they're the one generating dollars, they think they're making so much money, and then they go, well, look, why not make 100% of it rather than share it with the company that I'm working for? And look, that's a perspective. There's nothing wrong with that perspective, but just also know that's only probably 10% of what's actually real. So whether they've already started their businesses, their established businesses, or they're thinking about starting a business, you've got to understand what's truly involved when it comes to running businesses. People look at everything on the surface. People look at, okay, so this is how much money's being brought in. I understand there's maybe rent and some expenses to pay, and but the rest will come to me. It doesn't work that way, especially during these times where things are tough, because to a lot of people that say are not managing themselves and not building the right foundations, they've leveraged and risked the whole time. Like they've set up, for example, amazing offices, like cosmetically, and renovated, right? Maybe in the last 2 to 3 years. Most of them, they didn't pay for them themselves. They've done it on a loan, whether it be direct with the companies or maybe they've mortgaged their own property to do it. But okay, so the offices aren't even being used right now. Or a lot of them, there's just kind of, or people are discovering that maybe we don't need to be using this office, or maybe we don't need to do things. So you got to make sure that when you draw up a business plan or you're thinking about business, you got to get a whole spectrum of the scenario. Okay, the scenario is that it's not about just making the money. Making the money is maybe what they're good at, but it's also about what to do with the money when you make it. It's also about what is genuinely required before starting it as well. Like I think people, they take too big of a risk sometimes. It's not. Life is, of course, you can take risks, but you need to also do it in a way where you protect yourself too. You cannot just go all in and think that, okay, I'm going all in, I'm going to have to make this work. But the thing is that when things aren't working out, you got nowhere to go back to. Like you got no other base to head out to, and then suddenly you're borrowing on top of your borrowings. You're trying to rescue the business. Your pride and ego is just getting in your way from shutting the business down, and all these type of things, right? And then suddenly things go on its head. So to me, for those, whether they've started already or planning to start, is look, just to make sure that you get a solid foundation. That doesn't mean your clientele. Like that's only one form of foundation. Have a good business savvy mind. Have an idea of what cash flow is. Cash flow meaning money coming in, money coming out. Know that how this operates. Know that when you make money as a salesperson, money doesn't come in till 60 to 90 days later. Whereas money going out of the office it goes out within 30 days of the invoice coming through. So you need to go, all right, so what do I need to prepare here? So those are some of the more basic things. And then also too, I think no matter what, when you run business, it's all about long term. I think a lot of people, what you referred to earlier, is kind of more reactionary. They act on sometimes even just the monthly commission statements, or sometimes they act on the quarterly. You should be acting on 5 or 10 year plans. Like if you're running a business, because you need to understand that, your business is going to be definitely lasting that long. The first 5 years is going to be the toughest period of time. What have you set up to make sure that you can get through that without issues, regardless of whether the market's good or not? And then obviously move forward from there.
Such sound advice. I think you touched on the whole ego component of how ego leads to failure. I think a lot of people are driven to start their own business through that very same ego, that whole, I'm doing it here, of course I can do it anywhere sort of thing.
Yes.
How important to you were mentors and wise heads? Who did you have to soundboard everything off when you were thinking of giving this a go?
Yeah, look, I think this is where I do believe you are a product of your environment, and also I don't know a better way to put it than luck does sometimes work your way as well. I'm very grateful that I've had such a great tight-knit relationship with my older brother. He's older, he's only 5 years older, but he's so much more wiser. And I think for us, especially the younger siblings out there, we need to appreciate the type of experiences that the older siblings go through, because it's a different journey they go on. But to have a tight bond and relationship where they can share everything with you based on their own journey, and for us to be not selfish but selfless enough to absolutely absorb that as well. That's one key critical thing. So I guess he as my mentor. My father's always been very supportive, which is awesome. I know sometimes, especially when people are risk adverse, for example, like say my parents, they're migrants. They moved down to from China to here at a very difficult time without speaking the language. So to them, telling them I'm going to start a business and invest, X amount of dollars buying and taking over the business at the time, they go, "Oh, are you sure you want to do that? You want to put the pressure on yourself and so forth?" Yeah. But Dad was supportive to go, you know what? As long as you're in the right headspace, I support you. And then, look, once again, it's all about searching. So I've always, regardless of what I've done, business, auctioneer, whatever, I've always gone to go find what I believe is to be the best education and a source of information. So ever since young, from a financial side, I've always followed Robert Kiyosaki. I know I mentioned his name earlier. And even recently, I think I mentioned something to you, just learning some of the things that he said about finances and beyond is extremely powerful. And I think we always got to be able to have that soundboard or have that place where we can retreat to and listen to things. And they're talking about generic things, but you can relate it to your own personal situation, and to get multiple opinions and advice on it without being judgmental, and then make your own clear decision from there.
Mate, give us the analogy that you told us, before we kicked off, that Robert Kiyosaki mentioned about his analogy for this Corona cloud that we're all sort of getting through now. Give us his analogy. I'll let you take the glory on this one because it's brilliant.
Cool. Well, look, I'll try to, say it as clear as possible to the understanding of people. So obviously prior to, let's use an analogy. So prior to COVID-19 and coronavirus, where everyone looked like everything was going swimmingly, let's just consider us as caterpillars at that point in time. And then through COVID-19 and coronavirus, where things were placed upon us, restrictions on trade and everything as well, he used the analogy that, look, that was the stage where we were in our cocoon. And then he calls everything that we're going through right now, and now coming out of the things, is that we're going through a metamorphosis. We're going through, the world is changed. It's not going to be the same as before. Things are transforming. What are you doing to transform, or what metamorphosis are you going through? Are you going to come out of this as the butterfly with his wings and you go thriving, or are you going to stick as a cocoon and not evolve at all, and then ultimately fall behind? And I know he explained a lot better and clearer than I did, but hopefully that does explain it and give some sort of idea what I learned there.
It's such a good mental image. It's one of the best analogies I've heard for the entire situation, right? Because it's absolutely spot on. I mean, isolation has literally put us all in this brick-laden cocoon, and it's interesting. And just going back to something that I mentioned earlier about an observation that a number of people are really only just starting to think about this whole metamorphosis idea. Do I need to evolve? Do I need to do this? Some people that have just tried to race back out there as they were, hoping that they can make up for lost ground, and a number of them stumbling already, and as a result, getting into a bit of a vicious circle, which is not nice to see. With regards to that topic of metamorphosis, I mean, give us yourself as an example. I mean, what sort of things do you think you've changed? How have you sort of evolved throughout all this?
Look, I ultimately business itself is still operating, of course. And look, to say that it's at the same levels as before, of course it's not. But in terms of evolving, I know that if I evolve myself, then everything else around me can evolve too. If I don't evolve, if I don't produce some sort of transformation or metamorphosis, then as a business leader, then everything around me is going to stay stagnant as well. So to me, I looked at it as, okay, so what could I give, or what is true value that I could give out there? What else could I provide to the community beyond of just listing and selling real estate? We real estate, sometimes we think we're superheroes. Sometimes we think that we make everything happen. Yes, we do make some things happen, but in the end, I think that we as human beings, part of our responsibility is to go, all right, what else can I do more on top of what I'm doing to actually give more benefit out there? Because one of the things that I've always believed in, this happened after the spiritual trip that I went to, like, this sounds idealistic, but I really do believe this is, if we live in this type of world, or at least you build your community this way, it's going to be a better place. So I look at it as, okay, let's just say there's 10 people. We use the people of 10 as a population of 10 as an analogy. If every single person did not think for themselves and thought about for the 9 other people only, every single person actually lives a better life. Every single person has 9 people helping them other than just themselves helping themselves. So for me, it's about that. If I can share and provide value to people, and it's not from business, I expect, once again, no expectations. I'm doing this purely to help other people. But I do hope that if they all do this way, everyone in the community, greater community, I should say, benefits from it. So that's what I'm trying to, from you could say a direction and movement, that's what I want to create. And I think if I'm able to share that and others start slowly kind of thinking that way, and once again, whether it be just our industry or doesn't matter, it shouldn't be just limited to our industry, it's just people in general. All we actually thought about was helping the 9 others. And we also know that the 9 others are also looking after us. Everyone wins and we're in a better spot.
Mate, I love that. What a brilliant way to wrap this chat up. Honestly, I love that. I love that. 10 people, you either help yourself or you help 9 others, but in return, you get 9 people helping you. That is, I love that. I think that's brilliant, mate. And what a great way, what a great line to end this chat on, mate. Thank you so much for your time, man. I always enjoy chilling out and connecting with you, mate. You're an absolute star, mate. Have you got any sort of final comments that you want to say to the gang before we let you go?
Oh, look, just stay positive, guys. Look, ultimately, we can choose whether to be positive or negative. That is our choice. Although I think with what's been going on, there's so many things that can seem overbearing. Sometimes just center yourself, find yourself, be in your own zone. Don't let these outside distractions affect your own judgment. Be yourself, be true. That's all I can say.
Absolutely perfect, mate. Thank you so much for joining us on the Silver Lining, my man. And I'm sure you've offered so much value in a slightly different way, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much, and you take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. All right.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy.
All the best.
Yeah, you too. Bye.